So I continuously see these posts from Real Pharmacy, which is a naturopathic holistic site that likes to induce fear in the population. And so one of their latest campaigns is that they're saying that cancer is man-made and that cancer is a fungus. And yeah, I used to believe the same thing too. Actually, one of my first papers that I wrote with this protocol way in the beginning was that I was under the impression that cancer is Candida. But what I found through massive amounts of research is that cancer is a conglomeration of viruses that exploit the weak parts of your system. And where does Candida come from? Well, Candida is yeast overfed. And then what happens is that when you have an imbalance with your yeast, it then lowers your immune system, so your defenses are low. And then the viruses that have been around ever since mankind and before will then go and exploit the weaknesses. And so when you have pancreatic cancer, you have a combination of the Epstein-Barr virus, Hep A, Hep C, and maybe other hepatitis viruses, and they are what make up pancreatic cancer. Then there's other cancers like breast cancer that has another named virus. Okay? And so the conspiracy world, the holistic world, has tried to characterize cancer as a fungus. No, what you have is a virus that wants to take over a body that is weak and relatively defenseless. It's like a programming that just takes over and consumes. It's like a consumer that consumes more than it produces. And so when you have viruses in your body, like all these antibodies that then come together and agglutinate, what does it do? It takes over the body and shuts it down. When you get a transfusion from the wrong blood type, what does it do? Its antigen then creates all these antibodies, and then they take over the body and shut it down. How do doctors that give you the wrong blood transfusion, how do they correct their mistake? They give you an IV bag to then disperse those antibodies. Okay? So that way it's not going to shut you down. So the reasoning behind the holistic industry and why they're propagating that type of stuff is because they do want to sell you all of their detoxes that are antibiotic that will, yes, interrupt that multiplication, that programming. But what it does is that it weakens your body. And so, yes, you may shut down that programming, but that's just one virus out of trillions. Then you have other viruses that will go and exploit other parts of your body. And so then you're playing whack-a-mole. And then in the meantime, you're really not fixing the leaky gut. So whatever food supply you're bringing in, it's not going to the right places. And you're further being weakened. And then all of a sudden, you now have a cancer that you have no control over. No antibiotic is going to work. No chemotherapy is going to work. No cannabis is going to work. And then now you're left to hospice. And so there is this whole disinfo that I got caught up because of the holistic industry. Okay? Because they're trying to sell you baking soda as a remedy, which, yeah, if you catch your cancer early enough, chemotherapy, cannabis, baking soda, which you guys should never apply any of these antibiotics to anybody because you don't know what they bring to the table. But if you catch all of these cancers early enough, chemotherapy would work. You should never, ever address your cancer on your own with anything out there that somebody has recommended in any holistic group. Ever, 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 ever. Because you don't know what someone brings to the table. And then if you're applying a massive amounts of baking soda or bentonite clay or diatomaceous earth or kombucha or apple cider vinegar or anything that is like zeolite, all of these antibiotics, you could potentially shut somebody's body down because you have no idea how weak they are. So this is why I say don't be promoting all of these antibiotics like the black papaya seeds. Okay, that's another one of the big things that the holistic industry is famous for, is like the apple seeds and the papaya seeds, and then the turmeric and the garlic and the honey and all of these antibiotics that will then further weaken the body. So cancer is really viruses out of control. And so what the J juice does, it's a different programming. It actually supersedes the programming of these viruses to where you actually can live symbiotically with these viruses. No different than what a way to unify Democrats and Republicans. Democrats and Republicans have the potential to live symbiotically together, but they have to have an intermediary to do that. We haven't found that intermediary yet. We're still in the process because we still have society that can't even live with these viruses symbiotically or the bacteria that they're exposed to. They're trying to play the discrimination game. They're going and trying to live in a bubble and say, stay away from nightshades, stay away from this food, stay away from gluten, stay away from this, stay away from that. You know, playing the I'm going to live in a bubble and just stay away from everything until you basically cannot eat anything and be part of it. You can't even be around Roundup. The whole thing with the Monsanto and the Roundup. Roundup doesn't cause cancer, okay? Roundup is just another factor that would weaken already weakened immune systems. Well, okay, if it wasn't Roundup, because Roundup doesn't have the EBV virus or all these different viruses that make up lymphoma. Because what is lymphoma? It's a cancer made up of viruses. There are no viruses in Roundup. But if you're exposed to a conglomeration of elements and you're already over mineralized, or what the holistic would say, heavy metals, then yes, you're going to have a further of the weakening of your body. You already brought to the table mass amounts of viruses because everyone's exposed to it, and you have a weak body. So that's just another thing out there that you have to stay away from. And this is why people are now making that correlation as causation, that Roundup causes cancer. No, Roundup doesn't cause cancer. Nothing causes cancer except for people who do not strengthen their body. That's what it comes down to, is we have so many weak bodies and people who are playing whack-a-mole with antibiotics and holistic stuff. And then they are playing the avoidance game, playing the discrimination game. Well, I'll just stay away from nightshades and potatoes and breads and cookies and carrots and processed food. And I'm only going to eat vegan and vegetarian. Oh, yeah, I'm also going to get on the campaign against the whole animals and not eating meat. But yet people are steadily aging. I see some people who are aging very, very rapidly, completely like in their elderly, trying to get on this anti-meat campaign, only eating vegetarian. And it ain't working for them. At some point, they're going to kick off because they haven't fixed the programming in their body and they're aging rapidly. Okay? Because they're not bringing in the right nutrition. They're not bringing in the right data to then reprogram the body to be on a life trajectory, not a death trajectory. And they still want to play the discrimination game. So, yeah, you will discriminate yourself out of existence. So cancer is not man-made because these viruses have been around ever since before mankind. And guess what? They become stronger because then it runs through a person's programming. So when you guys catch somebody's virus or disease, whether it's communicably like airborne or through sexual or through different bodily fluids, you just actually strengthen that virus because it's gone through your body and then it's zapping the life out of your body. And you've also applied your programming to it. And then you are communicable, you're weak, and so you're communicable. And then you're basically passing that message that was weak coming to you, but is actually strong because somebody else made that strain stronger. You received it, processed it, and then now you're breathing on somebody else and you're also weak. And so that's why we have very strong viruses out there, because it keeps getting stronger when it goes through every single person's DNA. Once we strengthen people's bodies and we're exposed to viruses, the viruses won't become strong because we've been able to basically keep it at bay. We're able to corral these viruses on a strong body. But we can't corral these viruses on weak bodies because we don't have enough defenses. And then you see pandemics in the population like the measles pandemic, the Ebola pandemic in parts of the world. Okay? So until we get these bodies strong enough, these viruses are going to be the bane of your existence, but not for us on J-Juice. People on J-Juice, we will be exposed to all these viruses, and it's not going to affect us the way it does on a weak person. And it's going to be obvious when you do stay on J-Juice and you're realizing that flu season's pretty much coming up in the next few months. So while everyone around you is dropping like flies, you're going to be walking through like a crowd of killers, walking through a crowd of killers with a smile. That was a quote in a book of Chinese astrology under the monkey sign, that the monkey people can walk through a crowd of killers with a smile. That's who people who are in J-Juice are going to be able to do. They can walk through a very pathogenic crowd of people who are coughing like mad, and you would not get afflicted. They're all passing the viruses and making it stronger between all of each other, and you are just going to be deflecting and repelling, or taking it in, processing it, and taking the good and expelling the bad. Okay? So, yeah, cancer is not a fungus. Cancer is a conglomeration of virus programming that takes over a weak body and exploits. That's why it exploits weaknesses. So that's why when people are depressed and they're stuffing their feelings and they may have gotten a car accident or they've been abused their whole life and they've never really dealt with all these traumas. And so they're just circulating all of their crap. And then they also inherited really weak, like, diseases from their parents. And so they have all these weaknesses that are going on. And so that maybe there's breast cancer in the family. So you have a weakness in your breast tissue. And so, yeah, these viruses that you're already exposed to through natural immunity, as well as in your environment, they're going to exploit the weaknesses in your body. When you get in a car accident, yes, that's a weakness that eventually, if you don't change your programming, those injuries from a car accident are going to then have cancer be somewhere in that vicinity. That's what cancer does. It exploits weaknesses. Predators exploit weak people. Predators out there, like bullies, are like a cancer. They go find the weakest people and the weakest link, and they go and exploit. And then they also multiply and they agglutinate. How many groups out there that have a hater group, they go and attract other types of cancerous cells together. And then they go and try to take over other people who are weak. And then sometimes they destroy them. Other times the person figures out how to basically cut them off. And then they don't have a chance to destroy that person. But weak people will put themselves in positions to be destroyed by cancerous people and or viruses. See, it's all infinite fractals. Everything is related. Okay? So you guys stop passing around the real pharmacy bullshit, because that's the holistic industry trying to promote this propaganda to sell you a pill, powder, supplement detox or some kind of immunotherapy that's newest on the market. And then you're thinking like, oh, I got to try the newest thing. Don't fall for that bullshit. And don't make your friends fall for that bullshit too. If you're on the protocol, you have responsibility to really pass along actual credible information, not propaganda from an industry that makes a shit ton of money off of you, especially the holistic industry. They're the worst. They're worse than the allopathic. The holistic industry is no different than the conspiracy community. Okay? Anyways. All right. Thanks. Bye.